Good morning, comrades. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Nürburg, where the volunteer fire department of Nürburg and basically pretty much Nürburgring is celebrating its 75-year anniversary. And the inner child of mine is extremely excited to go and check out those fire trucks in a bit, show you more about it. But let me quickly tell you about the fire department. So as mentioned, 75 years old. It consists out of 20 volunteers that are volunteering for the fire department. And in addition, additional 6 volunteers are coming from the Nürburgring itself. So roughly they have 26 members that are doing it completely on a voluntary basis. So if they are right now on a Saturday playing with their child or mowing the lawn and the alarm goes off, they will drop everything and go to help people. Or also at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., if an alarm goes off for whatever reason, they will go out and help the people completely on voluntary basis. The fire department has 2 vehicles that we'll take a look at in a bit, 2 trucks, and in addition we have a couple of other vehicles that we will look at, but they do not officially belong to fire department. Important question, how do you become a fireman? Well, you can actually just go to your local fire brigade and ask to become a member. You will then need to go to a doctor to get a test to make sure that you're physically fit and you don't have any, so to say, any illness or sickness, and then you can become one, and then you will start at the bottom. Basically, you can go on missions but do not extinguish fires until you do some additional courses, some trainings, etc. Now, speaking of the Nürburgring, since of course this channel is based on it, the fire department told me that they have roughly 30 to 35 emergencies per year, which they told me that is actually not that much. And there's a division of 50% of actual fires, so cars being on fire, and other 50% are just technical issues. Let's say car landing on its roof and people being, well, they need help to being cut out of the vehicle, for example, or some other technical things. Now also the fire department of Nürburg is covering the first half of the track, so from here till Breitscheid till Adenau, and then from Breitscheid up until Nürburg again, the fire department of Adenau is responsible for. One very interesting point is that, as mentioned, there are roughly 25 or 26 members of the fire department, but in Nürburg there are only 150 people living here. So quite a big part of citizens here are actually the volunteers of the fire department. So it's really cool. Now, every once a year they organize such a party, and I would really like you to follow their social media pages to make sure when those parties are, so you can come here and support, because they get of course the government funding, but to get some cool stuff they need to do out of their own pocket. And for example, when they host such an event here, all the profit is being put in the pot so they can do some team building events, group building events, which is very important to reinforce the brotherhood feeling, so you know who you are going with into a burning building. Okay, I think that's pretty much it when it comes to all the information. Let's do all the cool stuff and check out the cars that we have here. And we're going to start with this Dodge Ram, which is E-unit truck. As mentioned, it's not part of the fire department of Nürburg. It's actually privately owned by a local company here, and Nürburgring quite often books these vehicles, for example, for track days and for races. So on the inside, you can see already it has some nice bucket seats, it has some important radio and other equipment, but the big party is happening in the back. So let's have a quick look here. It carries lots of water, I think roughly maybe like 500 liters or so. More importantly, lots of sand to cover up for all the coolant spillages, oil spillages on track. Of course, also the cutting equipment, if you need to cut out people out of the cars or race cars. That is pretty much it. Lots of carbon fiber. That is really cool to see. And let's now move on to the big one, to the actual fire truck, to see what we have here on board. Even bigger cutter scissors for really heavy duty. Then we have here safety equipment such as helmets and hearing protection. We have there a sled in case you need to evacuate someone who cannot walk anymore. Additional safety gear, here all the hoses, fire extinguishers, of course the oxygen masks or the oxygen, tanks. This big truck is carrying 1,000 liters of water on board. Most of the time, if you need to extinguish a fire, of course, you will have a big connector that you plug into external water pump source. I don't see any here on the street right now, but that's how it usually goes. But it already has 1,000 liters on board. And we can see here that it can pump up to 1,600 liters a minute, 4 bar. So in less than a minute, probably in less than 40 seconds, you can already empty the full truck, which doesn't make sense. So of course, obviously you look for a connector. And important thing, speaking of which, when I spoke to the chief of the fire brigade and I said like, what is an important tip that you can give to my audience to do something? He said, listen, if you arrive at the accident at the Nürburgring or on the street, doesn't matter. Of course, secure yourself first, make sure that you are safe. So he said the big issues, for example, with massive crashes, people stop there and look, and there's a lot of traffic coming up in the back, and additional crashes happen. So if you see those, try to get away from there as soon as possible, secure yourself, and then notify the emergency personnel and notify them exactly where it is and what has happened. Are people still trapped in their cars? Is something burning? How many people are there? How many cars are involved? So emergency services can respond in the proper way. So they know that do they need to take this, or they need to already ask for emergency helicopter. Information is critical to be delivered in time, and of course also as detailed as possible. So keep that in mind. Now let's have a look at some other equipment. So for example, here on this side, we have here again the sand that we saw earlier in the ram from the E unit. This hose is the direct connection hose for the water tank of the 1,000-liter tank. And then we have here a massive blower. So for example, if a house is on fire, you can, well, to get rid of the smoke or some other, if you're missing some fans, this could be your biggest fan. Very bad joke, but it's there. Additional equipment, we have the generator, of course also all the hoses and safety equipment. Then over here you can see that this truck can carry 7 people on the cabin and additional 2 people on the front. And the leader is always sitting here and telling everyone when to go, where to go. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to this one. Now here we have a new Unimog, and it's currently being actually prepared for the fire department because it's a really recently donated vehicle that will be converted to an actual fire truck, but we'll show to you how it's going to look like in a bit. But it's very cool to see that they have an updated material. This car is, or again this Unimog, is not a part of fire department but of the German Red Cross, or to be more precise of the Red Cross of Ahrweiler, of this region. And it has a bit of a sad story behind it, to be honest, because in the past the Red Cross have been asking the government like, hey, we would need a Unimog. And they're like, guys, what do you need a Unimog for? And then last year the floods happened, and they said, that's what we need a Unimog for. So during and shortly after the floods, the Red Cross got a Unimog donated from the army, and they converted to it to their needs. So you can have a look on the back. You can fit 4 people that can lie in there, and I think more than 10 on the inside sitting actually, and it's very big and comfortable. It has also ECG unit inside, I think electrocardiogram, that's how it's called, and some other safety. It was basically to get you to some places where you cannot get with helicopter even, for example, because that was also another excuse in the past. Why would you need a Unimog where you have helicopter? Helicopter cannot land in certain places, while with such a Unimog you can get to certain places. So that's what we have here. Adrian gonna insert some nice B-rolls of the stuff. Well, that's why you can also need the Unimog if you hurt yourself on the job. By what I was saying, Adrian can insert some nice fancy B-rolls. But let's have a look at the last vehicle, and that is the old Unimog, which is still being used by the fire department, and it is carrying 2,000 liters of water on board. But there's one interesting detail I want to show to you over here. Look at that. It was built in 1976, and that's basically, well, the last Formula 1 race where Niki Lauda has this nearly fatal accident on track. So that's how old this baby is. It carries 2,000 liters of water on board, and again, the other new one will be converted to the same spec. So 2000 water on board and some other safety equipment. I guess that's all I have to say. A quick introduction of how the fire department is working, how you can become a fireman, and also a quick look at their kick-ass vehicles. I hope none of you had the necessity of being saved by the fire department at the Nürburgring or will have the necessity, but it kind of makes me feel safe knowing that if it needs to happen, there are really passionate guys out there to help us out. Guess that's it. Let's go get some. I've heard they have some nice muffins. Let's see what kind of muffins firemen are eating. Very important point is that everything is homemade by the wives, mothers and grandmothers of the volunteers. So I'm sure it tastes extra good. Lit.